manage the meeting process on the day, and also have that point of contact liaison, if you like, with the staff who are responsible for that particular committee, drive the work program and have influence and input into that. But when it comes back to council, traditionally there's never been a chair's signature because the chief executive and her team put this paper together. So I don't see any issue with there being a chair's signature, but traditionally it's as simple as tradition, really.
But also, Mr. Chairman, traditionally the chair of the committee will lead the process of adoption and normally move the recommendation for adoption, so the chair is
and help explain and answer questions.
Involved. Yeah.
Mm.
Mr. Chair, just for the chair of the Councillor Graham, there are two negotiations from Ahuriri on the Māori committee, so you'll be meeting with them next week.
Could I just respond briefly to say thank you to the Chief Executive for that. That assuages my concerns. I just saw two different bodies covering two very much the same area. I saw potential for overlap, but I think the way you've described it, one is a statutory committee, which is correct, and the other is, I would put in the thing as an advisory management committee for drawing people together, and I think that would work fine.
Any further questions?
I just have a comment. I just want to pick up on some of Councillor Barker's points. Firstly,
Mr. Chairman, I think it has been moved. You don't have a seconder for the report. I think would you like a seconder? So
has it been moved? Oh, sorry, I missed that.
I'm not sure.
No, it hasn't been moved.
No, not yet. I don't
so
think it's moved.
So if we don't have discussion...
Well, we'll have questions at this stage because it's the first meeting of Environment and Services. We have new people around the table if they wish to.
Well, if you like, I'll move it, and then I can have a little bit of a discussion afterwards.
That'd be great.
So
okay.
I will move
so you're happy to move?
I'm happy to move.
Happy to second. Move, or do you wish to speak?
I just want to pick up a couple of points. Firstly, it's unfortunate that Councillor Barker missed the meeting. It was a very good meeting, and we were able to go through a lot of these things. So, and an incredibly well managed meeting, I have to say. And I was looking forward to his participation, but he was elsewhere. The second thing, I do pick up on his comment that the chair should sign off, and I know you have a tradition, but with this committee, I would like to sign off. I don't mind signing off with others, but it just means that I have personally signed off, and I think that's a good governance thing, to come back to the rest of the council and say it has been signed off, and the same with the minutes as well. So that'd be my only comment, and thank you.
Seconder, Mr. Speaker.
I think it was a good meeting, a lot of good stuff discussed. But I'd like in particular to comment on the opportunities to develop some support around Mana Haruri with the direction of the estuary. It's an area which is very dear to my heart. I go around it practically every day. And I have spent many, many hours cleaning it up and many, many hours planting in that area. And what has happened over the years is it's often ad hoc, and it would be really nice. I look forward in the future to see some vision around getting this estuary to one of the most great wetlands that it actually deserves to be. And I think getting some direction with Mana Haruri, it will be really an exciting prospect in the future on bringing all the bodies that have input into that area together to get a more coordinated effort.
Thank you. Any other speakers wish to sum up anyway? Happy? Put the motion, and all those in favour please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Now, item 9, I think we'll start this. And Mr. Ide, good morning, sir. He is here. Please take a seat at the table. So, if you could just perhaps briefly run us through the process here and how we've how we've ended up at this particular stage, and I'll invite questions.
This paper just outlines the last procedural steps in the journey that Change 4 has been through. Change 4 relates to a number of new provisions and amended provisions to the regional policy statement. Those provisions, policies are geared towards managing the built environment, many of which have fallen out of, or a better term is, they're embedding key principles that have arisen from the Hiratonga Plains Urban Development Strategy that this Council, Napier City Council and Hastings District Council adopted in 2010. So for Change 4, it's been prepared, drafted, notified, submissions were received, and from memory I think there are about 28, 29 submissions made on Change 4. Council heard those submissions, decisions were issued, and one appeal was lodged by Transpower New Zealand Limited. That appeal in recent weeks has been resolved through negotiations, and so that leaves the path clear to make Change 4 operative if this council so chooses to. And that's really the last procedural step for Change 4. Here and now it's not an opportunity for council to re-debate the content of Change 4, but if you're minded to, you'd have to basically go back through the process again and re-notify some different proposal rather than make amendments to Change 4 here and now. If and when Change 4 is made operative, staff are recommending in this paper that it become operative on a magical date of 1st of January 2014, that it would be a clear signal to ourselves and other agencies, such as the City and District Councils, to give effect to the new provisions in the regional policy statement. So, for example, Hastings District Council are heading along that pathway already in their new revised district plan. So the recommendation is that Change 4 be approved by Council. The date on which it becomes operative be the 1st of January 2014, and in terms of the statutory requirements under the RMA, we would need to give public notice of that operative date, and we're suggesting that 7th of December or thereabouts be when public notice appears in newspapers.
Questions? Councillor Beamer.
Can you just describe very briefly what the objection of Transpower was for us new people that don't know anything about this process?
Okay. Transpower's objection really honed in on the provisions in here around managing reverse sensitivity, largely around the potential impacts of development, urban development primarily, on the national grid, so the transmission corridor. And so we were able to add a few extra explanations and examples of how reverse sensitivity might be managed through rezoning proposals and city and district council resource consent decisions. So those extra explanations or explanatory text satisfied Transpower without altering the fundamental philosophy or purpose of the policies themselves in Change 4.
Councillor Mark.
I'm sure public notification, someone might object and say, well, you've withheld information for a while, you know, just why don't we do it immediately?
Can I answer that perhaps through you, Mr Chairman? I mean, we don't want to presume that you're going to give approval, and to set up a public advertisement is not just something that we can do at the end of this meeting for publication tomorrow morning. So in order to allow time to coordinate that public notice through a number of newspapers throughout the region, because it's not just one newspaper, we normally allow ourselves a good working week to be able to ensure that it's accurate and that you've approved it.
Well, could I suggest that I'm pleased that it's not presumed that we simply agree with everything you do. I'd like to think that we're capable of saying no occasionally. But could I suggest that I get the point about the public notices in the papers and coordinate, make sure they're accurate, but would it be okay to issue a press release to this effect afterwards, so it's on the website, public notices to follow? I'm just conscious that Our process should be as open, as transparent as we can be.
We have our communications coordinator sitting behind you, and she's nodding her head. So we can certainly do that.
That would be
The
normal.
press
process
release is
anyway.
already prepared.
That would be normal process, I would think. Let's get everyone back to the discussion and the decision pending. Councillor Dick.
Oh, well, I'm prepared to move the recommendation.
Okay. Well, let's see. We've got to move in a second when required. But before then, are there any other questions?
Yes, can I just ask one assistant record for making a plan change operative?
In terms of time taken,
Absolutely.
it would be up there in the top 3 for, I'd say, for this council.
And on another plan change that's another plan that is in process?
Microphone, please.
Beg your pardon. The coastal plan, is there any show of the minister actually signing that off? It's been on her desk for a year now.
His desk nowadays, yep.
Change the minister, right?
I've been chasing the minister's office, and apparently the minister has requested further advice from his officials before signing the coastal plan off. And I cannot get any definitive word from the minister's office or even the officials as to whether that will occur this side of Christmas or not.
So again, Mr. Chairman, that might be a record in the other direction.
Okay, so it's been no further questions. Further question, Councillor Bell.
So the hierarchy here, if someone proposed to do something, land use wise or what have you, that was in contravention of this, is their first stop going to their own district plan to object to that, or do they come to us, or what actually happens?
Change 4 does not introduce any rules, or it's not a regulatory instrument in itself. There are regulatory instruments that say yes, you can do something, no, you can't do something. Found typically in the district plans and in regional plans, regional rules. So a would-be subdivider or developer looking at a new development of, say, 10 lots somewhere, their first port of call would 9 times out of 10 be through your city or district council officers looking through the district plan. And yes, so the district plan would need to be clear and deliberately give effect to these new policies. That won't happen overnight, obviously, but in time you'd expect that district plans are amended in a way that align with these new regional policy statement provisions.
So they all would have been submitters to this and are happy with this?
Napier and Hastings were submitters to it, yep. Yeah.
No further questions. Mover, you wish to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think it's worth noting that this is quite an achievement, not just because of the very reasonable period of time that it's taken, which is quite almost unparalleled in the process of rule making through RMA, but because of its significance as a collaborative enterprise between Hastings District Council, Napier City Council and the Hawke's Bay Regional Council to provide a framework for urban development and associated land uses on the Hiratonga Plains. And of course it arose from the Hiratonga Plains urban development strategy, which was again a collaborative process worked through over a period of time and involving wide public consultation. And Councillor Belford in earlier capacity was a significant contributor to that. So it means that there is a framework. It means that the urban boundaries of the two cities are constrained, ring-fenced, and provision is made for anticipated urban development, both greenfields, infill and brownfill over a substantial period out into the future. So that's got to be good. It provides for the integration of infrastructure with development, and in particular transport infrastructure with urban development. So it's a very significant achievement, and it belies the assertion that there is no such thing as cooperation between the councils, and in particular Napier and Hastings. So I have great pleasure in moving this resolution.
Thank you. Seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to affirm what Councillor Dick has been saying. It grew out of a very cooperative process over all the councils who had an interest in the development, but also with a considerable amount of public input. But also, this is quite a first for us. It's the first time we've had anything in our policy statement around these issues of urban development. So that's quite significant too. And I'd just like to complete the fact that it was a cooperative process, and that the hearing on this regional policy statement was a joint hearing between Hastings District, Napier City and the Regional Council. So from woe to go, this has been a joint effort.
Thank you. Other speakers, Councillor Balfour.
I also would commend the process, while not conceding that excellent process in this case is a substitute for structural change that might be called for at the end of the day. But it was an unusual process in that submitters originally to the draft versions of this actually came in and presented in front of Mayor Ewell, Mayor Arnott. I think Eileen von Dadelson was the representative of this council, and Councillor Dick as well, so that folks who had views on this were heard collectively by all the relevant parties at one time. And it is a process that there are other issues in front of Hawke's Bay that would benefit from being managed through a similar process, regardless of where we wind up on structural change in the future. Long-term plans, for example, it's not clear to me why you couldn't have this exactly same process around long-term plans. There are some things that are unique to localities. There are many other things that ought to be addressed regionally within those plans. And this was a good process for airing all of that in full view of all the potential decision makers.
Thank you. Councillor Bevan.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I'm a strong supporter of this plan. I recall when I first came back to Hawke's Bay at the beginning of the 1990s and became involved in the primary industry, there was a proposal that the Hastings District Council was considering at the time to take in about 80 or 90 hectares of land for subdivision on the edge of between Hastings and Twyford. And I was strongly opposed to it when I discovered an aerial photo that was taken of the Hastings area just after the Second World War in around 1950, and when you superimposed it over the boundaries of Hastings in the 1990s, I discovered that already 2,000 hectares of productive land had been taken in a pretty ad hoc way for subdivision and additional housing on the fringes of Hastings. And if we continue to do that for further generations, clearly we lose the economic power base that this region absolutely needs. So anything that ring fences our productive capacity and preserves it for future generations clearly is desirable.
Thank you. Wish to sum up? Very good. I'll put that motion in. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Now we have